Africa is going to be what some of you might know as class action suits, where a group of you, let's take a product, a hair shampoo. It's made by a big pharmaceutical company. They say it will cure baldness. In fact, it doesn't cure baldness. It creates some kind of eczema on your head, and for that you wish to proceed. Well, you bought your shampoo for $9.99. It's unlikely that your medical claim is going to exceed more than a couple of £1,000. It's not the kind of thing that you're in fact going to go and litigate about. But think now, if there were 1,000 of you, or 10,000 of you, now it becomes a real claim, and it becomes a real worry for the pharmaceutical company. Enter the class action suit lawyer. This is what this act now permits. And it's rather worrying. People, of course, say, where are these lawyers going to come from? I don't know how many of you have noticed the legislation that's currently about surrounding the Road Accident Fund. But essentially what's happening there is the Road Accident Fund is a fund where in your petrol price you pay in a couple of cents a litre, and it gives you insurance if you're injured in a motor car accident. And there have been a group of lawyers, personal injury lawyers, over the years that have become well schooled in personal injury law, what we call the law of delict, and they will act on your behalf against this insurance fund known as the Road Accident Fund. But what's happened is the Road Accident Fund has now had legislation enacted that essentially is going to remove a lot of the potential for work for these lawyers. So these lawyers are now looking around. And I don't know how many of you watch television on a Monday night, but you have Carte Blanche Medical. Look just before Carte Blanche Medical, there's a law firm advertising for medical negligence cases, because that's another group of people who have insurance. You'll see that on Thursday nights we've got Carte Blanche Consumer. I can assure you that in October you will see those very same firms advertising before those shows. Have you suffered anything? You see it in the States, they advertise. Remember the Tylenol cases. Has your child taken Tylenol? Have you suffered any damage? Phone 0800, we'll get them. That's where we're aiming for here. So access to redress, it's going to be there. Addressing the disadvantages experienced in the unequal relationship between the consumer and supplier that we've talked to. Promoting fair business practice. I think ultimately it's going to have that aim. Okay? But at what cost? Yes, we're all going to have the quality product, the quality service, the quality good, but we know who pays for that. At the end of the day, it has to be the consumer who pays for that. So, whilst the Act, in my view, has great intentions, we have to be mindful of who's going to pay for its implementation, who's going to pay for this quality product that we're getting now. And don't we sometimes rather buy the cheaper product, knowing that perhaps we're getting an inferior quality, but we're prepared to take that chance? No longer is that going to be the case. Protecting consumers from from unfair and deceptive conduct. That's the so-called ban against bait marketing and negative marketing scenarios. You know the scenario, you open the Sunday Times, there's a big screen television at a national chain store, and it's advertised for R1,000. So we all rush down there and, oh my gosh, sir, the last one has just been sold, but let me show you this model at 5,999. We all know the game. I mean, it is what it is. What they're saying now is, no longer will you be able to do that. What you'll in fact now be tested against is, what is the medium you advertise this product in? The Sunday Times has a readership of X. Demographically, we can expect that you were targeting LSM whatever, and you could have expected to have so many people attend on your store. You're now going to provide them with that product. So, yes, it pulls us all into line, and we can see some of us smiling as the consumer here, but if you owned one of those national chain stores, it would be a different day for you. Okay, improving consumer awareness and the efficient system of redress. The Department of Trade and Industry and the media, but I think specifically the Department of Trade and Industry, intends on doing roadshows and intends to make consumers aware of this. It's not going to be the kind of thing that you will find some dusty lawyer who will advise you that you in fact have a right. The consumers are going to know their rights. We can see, it's Thursday night on Carte Blanche Consumer. I can assure you that they are going to punt this act and as they should, they're going to punt this act big time. And it's going to be in most of the printed media as well, I'm quite sure. So, is there going to be action in terms of this act? I say yes. Fundamental consumer rights. What do you have the right to? You have the right to equality to consumer markets. Now, when this first came out, the banks became concerned. They said, well, what is unfair discrimination? If one looks to the Constitution, one looks at discrimination on the basis of age, on the basis of sexual orientation, gender, etc. But what about first for women cars? What about we marketing an old age home, discriminating on the basis of age? What about a private bank? We only take people who earn over a certain amount of money. So these things fall still to be considered. The word is obviously that one will be able to discriminate on a fair basis. So obviously things that are marketed specifically to elder people will be allowed. We hope that there will be a modicum of rationality that the courts will apply. But on that part about the rationality that the courts must apply, this is the first piece of legislation that not only that I've seen, but that I know to be true, that enjoins any presiding officer adjudicating any dispute between a consumer and a supplier to have in mind the preamble of the act. Now you could say, well, what does that mean? That sounds very lawyerish. What that means is, when you look at any act, there's this warm and fuzzy bit in the beginning, and it tells you why we have this act. It's to promote this and to promote that and to increase harmony and transparency. Okay? But what this act now does, it says, I, who am adjudicating this case, when I'm looking at how a dispute should be settled, must have mind to what that preamble says. And what does that mean? That means a 60-40 split in my view. That means if there's a decision that can go either way, I find in the consumer's favor. And that's what this act is going to not permit, but enjoin a presiding officer to find. That if there's an interpretation that can be found in favor of the consumer as opposed to the supplier, the consumer wins every time. And that, for me, is disturbing. Your right to privacy, that we can all be very happy about. Those SMSs, would you like to buy a new cell phone? And they're SMSing you on your current cell phone, at home, at 9 o'clock at night, gone, thankfully. Those invasions into your home, the phone ringing, do you have 5 minutes, sir? Gone. All of that over. Thank you. Praise the Lord. The right to choose and statutory warranties. This is now very, very worrying. It interferes with the principle of the freedom of the courts having the view of the sanctity of a written document. No matter what we agree as a supplier or a consumer, if we're supplying a good, there is a 6-month statutory warranty, a guarantee, a right of return in that good. And I'll talk to you exactly how you're entitled to do that. But where you need to think about that, those of you involved in banking as financiers, those of you involved in accounting who might be involved in sales of businesses, if you have this statutory right of return for 6 months, how do you deal with that from an accounting perspective? Has that sale hardened? We were debating at the table now from a tax perspective. Has that sale hardened? Are you to pay income tax on that yet? It could be returned.